Yeah, but anyway, like always, we're just gonna go right into it. How's it going, Doctor Howard?
Yeah, it is going well. It's going well. I just came out of a rough patch, which we might be talking about, like a rough, yeah. But now I'm my mentals are stabilized, so this is the perfect time to have the conversation. But I was stuck for a few months.
Did you do any meditation to get out of that, or you're just like, let me just power through it like a Treyu, in
It's
the
for you. Nostalgia right there.
yeah, in the what is it, the bogs of misery or
Yeah,
something like
yeah.
that.
Oh my gosh, I love that movie. You know, I do a lot of self-care as just a part of who I am.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I'm realizing though is when I'm going through a tough time, I have to do something additional because the normal stuff that I do as a part of self-care doesn't feel like self-care when I'm going through a particularly tough
Yeah.
time. Which is very interesting because I'm doing those things to maintain my mental health, but when I'm really in a crisis, it's like, oh, you those normal self-care things just feel too normal, so I got to figure out something else. But basically, how I came out of kind of my stressful couple of months, Thomas, was really just talking to a friend.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes the friends you talk to are not the obvious choice in terms
Yeah.
of the person that might be able to say something to help you. So that's kind of what happened, which was interesting. Um, and he just reminded me to like just let go.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I feel like a lot of the creative process is trying to control the outcome because we're goal oriented.
Yeah.
But sometimes, yo, you just gotta let go, man. You're not in control of a lot of things. Some things you are, but sometimes it's just like
Yeah.
I just let go, man.
I think it comes down to like a lot of artists, and I'm obviously generalizing, but a lot of artists, they believe in the if I do A, B will happen mentality. So if I write a book, it will sell. Well, why will it sell? Well, I wrote it. It's really good. Okay, but why? Who knows that? You,
Right.
you don't just write a book and then people start knocking on your door like I heard you finished the last word and just would like here's my money, you
Right.
know or they go if I get an agent, then B will happen. If I get an
Right.
agent, then I can focus on creativity and they can pitch it around and obviously it's going to
Right.
get picked up,
Right.
and then
Right.
like,
No, it's so true.
right, and then you go again. If A happens, B, I mean, if I do A, then B happens. So if I get
Mhm.
published, then they'll handle the marketing. I'll make some money. It'll cover me. I can quit my job and then I can focus on just writing my books. And that's all I want to do. I just want to be
Yep.
creative. And the moment you want to make money in this industry, and also correct me if I'm wrong, but the moment you want to make money in this industry,
Mhm.
it's a job, you know.
It just starts with work. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
creativity is, I think, the thing you do after work. Like, even if, like, for example, let's say you worked at a supermarket,
Mhm.
and you came home and your dream was to be a musician, an actor, a writer, or whatever. When you get
Mhm.
home from work, your job, you're like, all right, let me play with the stuff I like. Let me try learning a monologue. Let me try
Right.
writing some chapters. I'm exhausted, but I love this so much. I'm just gonna push through it.
Yes.
But then, like, people who jump into this career, let's say they save up enough money to sort of like ignore the job, or let's say they get a little bit of money, but they don't necessarily understand how finance works.
Mhm.
They think, oh, I could write for 8 hours,
Right.
but in reality, Stephen King only still writes for 4 hours.
Mhm.
And he doesn't necessarily write 4 hours in a row, because he has to
Right.
go to the doctor, he has to go mail
Yes.
stuff,
Right.
he's got stuff he's got to do. And I think if artists, I'll give you the floor in a second, but like if artists just sort of break up the reality of it, it's like I still have the job part, and if I focus 8 hours towards that, and then I give myself 4 hours or 2 hours or even an hour of creativity at the end of the day, that 8 hours of work is
Mhm.
going to make me money to do the
Mhm.
thing that I love to do. And I don't think
Right.
artists think that way often. What are your thoughts on that?
No, yeah. I mean, you hit on a couple of good ones. I find that thinking if I do A, B will happen very rarely works out like that.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it does, but more often than not, if I do A, which I think is maybe, oh, the really big opportunity that I'm trying to get, the things that I thought were attached to that big opportunity are not. Like, you make up these stories about what will happen if we get that opportunity, but all of the other stuff that you thought would come with it doesn't. And that's a reflection that I've been having. And then I think too, money gets in the way a little bit. So like, I've been fortunate to make really good money as a writer, right? Just really good money as a writer, like the entrepreneurship part. And I realized that the more money you make, the higher the standard becomes to maintain what you made the year before. And as we know, with entrepreneurship, it's not always like that. Like, you can have 2 really good years in a row, and then when you have a bad year, you got to adjust your way of life and standard of living, right? It's like the bar and the numbers become bigger. So the bigger the paychecks I get for, like, let's say ghostwriting or whatever it is, it's almost like the bigger the debt as well, right? Because it's just like, it's hard to explain, but things cost more, and so just the numbers are bigger.
Oh yeah.
Right? You understand what I'm saying?
That's why I moved to the Midwest.
Right.
The bills here are nothing. It's like a third of New York, and I miss New York and the pizza and the people, but like and the pizza, and but and some people, but you're right. Sometimes we live off of the money that's not in the hand. We live, right? Yeah. So we're like, oh well, I got this last year, so I'm gonna get this year. It's like, that isn't necessarily how it works. But you not you, but the royal you should always be learning how to organize your money. Like, what is your, how can you cover 6 months of overhead if you stop working completely? Once that happens, then you could start taking the money over that and start organizing. I could go, well, here's security, growth, and dream. I could protect myself, invest in myself, and reward myself without spending my overhead money. And a lot of times we forget that part of our job is to make our money work for us. And if we're not doing that, we're just sort of just paying our bills, and that becomes a little dangerous for the long run. But also,
when you have great financial years as an entrepreneur, do what Thomas just said. Don't reinvest everything into the business. Save some for the 6-month operating costs, because that downward spiral will come. You don't go back up, but you have to make sure you can survive the drought.
Yeah. Like I tell people, I've been doing this since 1997. Like, I'm living the dream. I'm old, but at the same time, whatever. But I still had a job until 2005. And then, so what is it, 20 years now, I haven't had a job, but I don't do anything. And people are always like, how do you make money? I go, because I have other things going on, because people, people come to me and I help people. I get involved. I'm the person who knows the person, or whatever the case is. And it's like, I couldn't have that life if I didn't organize it a certain way, if I didn't have preparations to, because you can't just be like, I'm going to just jump in. Like, I always hate that Steve Harvey quote. I like it, but I hate it at the same time. The one is like, you got to jump out of the plane and you got to let God open your parachute. Yeah. And you're like, I don't need God opening my parachute. I need to prepare my parachute. Make sure it's in there.
God don't open it.
Yeah. He's like, well, your lesson is to hit the ground. And I was like, no. I'm like, could I draw a little bit, maybe write a little bit before I hit the ground? So I always, or even Oprah has a really a famous quote where she's like, if you don't basically reward yourself, if you don't gift yourself first, what are you doing? And now people who don't have money, or people who aren't successful, they're thinking, oh, you know what? I think I will go on vacation. Like, you don't have money.
Yep. Bad idea.
Make the money, create the system, invest your money, allow the assets to afford you the opportunity, and then you can reward yourself with as many vacations as you want. But you can't buy a car just to be living. Oh, I'm faking until I make it. Well, now you're broke.
Yep.
That's my point.
One of the best things I ever did was keep my day job as a professor, right? And even when I started making more money as a writer, I contemplated, let me just go all in on this entrepreneurship stuff, right? Because I'm already making more than they're paying me. But one of the best things I did was to keep the day job. Especially having a child, right? That consistent paycheck is so important in the parts of entrepreneurship that are not going well, like those 6 months or even that year. And I do know, I feel like there used to be a lot of messaging on social media where you got to go all in. You got, right? Just leave the job and do what's right for you. To the people out there, like, do what's right for you in your own situation and your own mental health, right? Because people don't talk about just leaving the day job and going all in on entrepreneurship prematurely can really, really
it destroys
your head up, yo. Like, you just might not need that level of stress and anxiety, right?
I do believe, though, you cannot be successful as a hobbyist. So if you do have a job, especially if it's full time, you can't have a full time quote unquote hobby. You know. However, I am also the person to say, even though Tyler Perry lived in his car for 10 years and now he's a multi-billionaire and he has, I think, how do you do the Tyler Perry thing without doing Tyler Perry? And the truth is, save up money, create your startup capital, because like when I opened my theater, I couldn't open that up unless I had startup capital.
Right.
Because like how long does it take to even get a theater running?
Right.
Pretty long, but what did I do? I started working with libraries before the theater opened. I got a job at a deli down the street so I could just talk about the theater opening all the time. And as soon as I opened the door, I was people know about it, right? So I didn't get the job because I needed money. I got the job because I worked 3 hours in the morning right next to a college, which was an art college. So, you build up and then they come to the theater like, oh, aren't you the guy from the deli? I go, yeah, I own the theater. I was doing, and they're like, whoa, like this is crazy.
Right.
But at the same time, I couldn't have done that if I was broke.
Right.
And I was like, let me open up a theater because it cost 160,000-ish, a little bit more, just to get it running.
Wow. Yeah.
And then you have to expect 6 months to a year, you're going to be broke. You have to expect that.
Right.
We were lucky enough where the library led to us having 10 to 20 acting students. It led us, I did a writing class that was 50 to 100, 75 students every week. So that led to other people hiring me as a consultant, or they used the theater. So like I created movement, but I had that money, protect. And that's the thing. Like artists are like, they're going to see me act, or they're going to read my book, or they're going to hear me tell a joke. And that's it. They're going to be like, why are you not signed already? Let's work.
Right.
But you can't rely on that, and you have to have that money so you can be at the clubs, not to necessarily perform, but to network. You gotta, even as a writer, like, how many writers do you know that go and get jobs with publishers? How many writers do you know that get jobs as nobodies though? Like they're just rarely. They just go, I'm gonna just write my book. Brandon Sanderson did it. He worked at a hotel at night. He wrote his books, took him 10 books, and then he sold a book. And then, but like, again, 10 years for overnight success, it's, we've talked about that before we started. So if you really want to be successful in any career, especially writing, you gotta go all in. But then everyone says, what do they say? Well, like you said, I got a kid, I got a husband, I gotta pay bills, I got a house, I bought a house. Well, why did you buy a house if you had this dream?
Right.
The kid thing that can happen, like we can't always plan that, but a house, you make a choice for that.
And you might have made that choice. You might have made that choice in a different, when you were in a different mindset, right? A different period of your life. Now you got this gift from your past that you don't want anymore.
Like, what's going on? But you could sell the house. Oh, but then where would I live? A small apartment. Well, why? Because you use that money to seed your career. It only takes 2 years at most to become successful in your field of interest. That's where you're making a living within your field of interest, but not necessarily doing what you might love. Like actors, I always tell actors, I go, wouldn't it be more beneficial for you to be a PA or background actor for the first year, just getting to build relationships that will lead to opportunities? Okay. You're not acting as a lead. You're not, what's the most you're going to do? Independent. No one's seeing that, right? But you're working around the professionals in the professional industry, or
connections.
That's the connection, right? Or would you rather work at a supermarket and then sort of kind of like hopefully you know, that independent film your friends are working on, you'll submit it to festivals, which we all know festivals don't actually lead to results unless, of course, you already
Yeah.
have the in,
Yep.
you know,
Mm.
because in reality, the nobodies, and I say
Mhm.
that respectfully, the
Yeah.
nobodies are paying for that festival.
Yep.
You
Oh,
know,
so tough. Yep. Yep.
I've worked in that. I've worked behind the scenes. I know even the bands, you know, bands that are like, oh, we got to open up for like a big
Yeah.
band. They're paying the band because they have to pay the tickets in advance. They
Right.
go, we're going to give you like 30 tickets and
Mhm.
you pay us $10 a ticket or whatever it is. And then you could sell the ticket for 15. And you're like, but the door
Wow.
is $10.
Wow. So the band is paying to be there.
Yes, it's pay.
Ooh, it's tough out here.
Yeah, you buy the ticket. Same thing with comedians. If you bring 10 people, you can
Mhm.
perform. If you bring 5 people and pay $5, you can perform. That's how New York City is, right?
Okay.
But it's like if I bring 10 people and I don't get paid anything from those 10 people, why
Mhm.
am I going to bring 10 people? Well, you get to
Right.
perform on stage. I can literally perform in my living room
In front of
in
those
front of the
people.
same 10 people
Man,
that are my friends because they don't
that's
care
tough.
about us. Yeah,
That's tough.
it is tough.
It is tough. And like, yeah, what you're talking about too is strategy. You know, be strategic.
Hmm.
It really has helped me to have a long-term plan, not just yearly goals, but like my 10-year plan, right? Thinking over a longer time horizon
Hmm.
has really helped me and decreased anxiety too, because I'm like, hey, it's not just about what I do in 1 year. I have a 10-year
Yeah.
vision, and this is what I'm moving towards. And just because I have one bad day, it doesn't ruin the 10-year plan.
Hmm.
So I've really been coaching people on everybody comes to me with yearly goals. And usually halfway through the year, they're like, yeah, I'm not making that goal. And I tell them, like, why don't you write out a 10-year plan? A
Yeah.
10-year plan, a 3-year plan, and a 1-year plan. And
Hmm.
this will help you think over a longer time horizon, and it'll decrease the stress. And really help you see where you're going.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's really helped. And I have the benefit of being a professor that only works 2 semesters out of the year. I have 4 months off.
Yeah.
I have I max out my retirement. You know, it's a different type of full-time job that doesn't require me to leave it if I don't want to.
Yeah, you're in a very beneficial
Very
situation.
unique
You're
privilege, I
privileged.
would say. It's a privileged situation. And I do want to add it, while it's a privileged situation, I did have to get a PhD to earn that privilege. I had to be in school for 9 years, y'all, which is something that a lot of people are not willing to do. So it's not like a privilege where it was given to me, but it
Oh, you had
definitely
to work
was
for it.
one that ended up working out in the long run,
Yeah.
as I pursue my writing career,
But you got to remember the perspectives of people who aren't in your shoes. They're like, well, she
That
gets a job. She gets 4 months out of the year off. Of course, she can
is
do what she
crazy.
wants. She's
Yeah.
privileged. But in
Yeah.
reality, it's like, even when I was performing like in like coliseums and stuff like that with my band, like
Mm.
they're like, oh, well, you're privileged. You get to perform in front of like 6,000 people, 8,000 people. I'm like, I didn't do that on day one.
Right. Yeah.
You know, I had to work to get people to say, we want you to do this show for us.
I think people miss that part. I think people, I had posted something on Threads a while ago and people got mad at me. It was like around this is funny. It
Because it
was
was
around
threads.
Threads. It was around like tax season, and I was
Yeah.
complaining on Threads. Usually I don't do this. But I was complaining on Threads that I was upset that the government puts a max on how much you can put into your 401k, because I've been
Oh,
maxing out my 401k for like 6 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And my audience was like pissed off at me, like, oh, you got rich people problems, right? They were getting very upset, like basically stop sharing your rich people problems and blah 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 blah. And I listened and I thought about it, but I realized, like, I make a big sacrifice in order to be able to do that probably most people wouldn't make. And it touches on what people don't see the sacrifice to get that thing. So I live with my mother. I'm 41 years old and I live with my mom.
You don't look a day over 30.
Right. But that's the sacrifice that allows me to have all of this money in my 401k and max it out. If I was just on my own, which I make enough money to live on my own and raise my son, but I got a 10-year plan.
Yeah.
it requires me to make this huge sacrifice. Like living with your parents as a grown person is tough, but to me it's worth it. So like when people were criticizing me that I'm rich, I'm like, they don't have the full context. And you know, you don't always get to see the sacrifices that successful people make because sometimes they don't share them, or sometimes you just don't know.
Yeah, because dating is difficult when you live at home.
Everything's difficult when you live at home, dude. Like,
Yeah.
yes, that's a big sacrifice,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, you can't be like, you want to come to my place, and you're like, my roommate.
Let's not do that. Yes, and then when you live with your parents too, they're still your parents. They never stop being your parents.
Yeah,
So they
they're like,
get to tell
leave
you
the
what to
door
do.
open.
Yeah, they get to tell you that, right? They so it's a big sacrifice, but financially, I mean,
Yeah,
I'm crushing it, but it's a sacrifice.
and I would almost argue and stand by this argument, and of course, it's just my opinion based on whatever information I've grown up with. But you know, rich people are poor, and that mentality allows you to understand that rich people are handling money in, money out. Wealthy people are generating passive income. They're reinvesting their money. They're doing. I'm not going to go too into it because this is a writing show, but there's security loans you could take against 100,000 or more. But these people have millions of dollars, so they'll put millions of dollars into an asset investment. Usually, it's an index fund or some sort of a high interest rate trust or whatever the case is. And then you could take a loan up to 75% out on it, and it's tax free. So they allow their money to build on it. They just pay the interest on these loans because you don't have to pay the principal, right? And they're 10-year loans, and sometimes you don't even have a limit. And then they take that 75% and they reinvest it into other things. So your $1 million could be, 1.75 million that you're investing. And then they do the same thing.
Themselves, yeah.
And they borrow from themselves, and they're not paying. But if you're rich, you don't have that kind of money. Rich is I'm living 60,000 to 200,000 maybe, but I'm still working. I'm still paying for this. I'm still doing it. So. A lot of my mentors who were multimillionaires, they would be like, rich people are poor. And it's because they're rich enough to not struggle, but they live to their means.
Or beyond.
Even I talk about this in the book, but Johnny Depp, he made $20 million a movie. Okay.
Wow, yeah.
Right? That's pretty good, right? Holy wow, 20 million after taxes. Maybe it's 15 million, right? Okay. But his monthly budget was $2 million. So he had to do a movie a year just to afford 10 months.
Crazy.
Right?
That's crazy.
That's why Nicolas Cage, after his taxes all got screwed, he's doing all these crazy, but I just filming. Because you got to remember he owned castles, not a castle, not a house.
Crazy.
Nicolas Cage owned, I don't know if he owns them anymore, but he owned castles, plural.
Wow.
Right? And he also owned a whole bunch of other stuff. But the point is, Johnny Depp spent $20,000 a month on wine alone. You know what I'm saying? Like, some people would say he's wealthy, but he's rich because he has he has to afford his lifestyle. And I also talk about that where I say, success is defined for me, I define it as making a living within your field of interest. A living is not a lifestyle. A living is affording your average monthly overhead, whereas a lifestyle is usually like, well, I want to have the best sneakers, I want to have the best phone, I want the best car, I want to have the best whatever. And to me, when you're starting out, like I talked about this before, I used to sleep in my office. I didn't have an apartment. I gave up the apartment I had. I had a really nice one. It was 3-bedroom. It was in New York, and it was $1,600 a month. But I gave that up and decided to have an office. I had an office for 1 year, and I said, I'm just going to focus on bringing in clients, making money. At the end of that 1 year, I opened up a theater. So, I went from 1,000 square foot office to a 6,200 square foot theater.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
And that's how people like. I was doing Tyler Perry, except I had money to survive on, but I just limited my resources, or not my resources, my cost.
Right, keep the cost down.
Yeah,
that's why.
And now I don't worry.
Right,
I don't have any worries. Right. But
I think the point is, like, there's not just one way to do this.
Agreed.
You can create the path that works for you if you have some of these fundamentals that we've been talking about, living below your means, not overspending. There's not one way.
Correct. Yeah.
And just be confident in picking your path and then moving towards it in a smart, strategic way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and you could even put on the table, like, I agree with you without conflict, where it's like everybody has their own variables, their own paths.
right.
What I usually say is everybody needs the network market practice, but how you go about that's the variable. That's your means. That's your comfortability, but you do need to build relationships. You do need to create an impression on people and build your brand awareness.
Those are fundamentals to me. Yeah, those are like, you got to have the fundamentals. Those are like,
right?
Moves without people like you.
But some people don't think. They go, I'll just write my book and my book will be finished and then I'll publish my book. It'll go on Amazon and it'll sell because it's a really good book. And you're like, but you don't know anyone in the industry, so no one's talking about you. You don't market the book, so no one even knows the book exists, because Amazon's not going to be like, oh, thanks, you're one of a million people who just published. We're going to push you because we didn't actually read your book, but it is amazing.
Right.
And because of that, and because of who you are, even though I don't know who you are, we're going to push your book. And that's just not how it works. Like I got involved with my community here. And now I work at the library. I'm trying to do something with the college over here. Yeah. I'm trying to do stuff with Barnes, right? But that doesn't just happen because I wrote a book.
Yep.
Like I have to physically get out there, and I can't ask for anything right away. I have to start being like,
you got to give.
Yeah. Like, what can I do?
Yep.
But not everyone thinks like they think about me.
I realized that the networking piece, which is just about meeting as many people as possible and being useful and helpful with relationships.
Yeah, building those relationships. Yeah.
I realize that there's more than one way to do that as well.
Yes, 100%.
Right. And for me, I am a single mom. My son is young. I'm not trying to get on airplanes and be out the house all the time and do the most, as if I were single.
Of course, yeah.
And so I realized for me, either you'll spend your money and time doing it that way, which is going to work for some people, or you can spend your money and time in this day and age on social media. Social media has made me so many connections and given me so many opportunities, but it's not, the time investment needed is no different than having to go to 5 networking events every month and go into my community and do writing and storytelling. It's just a different place. I've decided to spend my time and money because I'm in a different situation where I can't be outside all the time. And I think that it's helpful for people to think about it like that, right? There's real people on social media as well. And maybe that will work for you for your situation. If you're somebody in my situation, because I just meet, and you have to be social on social media. Like,
you gotta actually have to be social.
You can't just be posting. You have to, like, I talk to people on, like, in my DMs. I ask people, who are you? What do you do? What are you working on? Right? People schedule Zoom meetings with me, TV execs, all types of people. And so, where do you want to spend your time, energy, and money based on who you are, your situation? But you have to make connections with people.
Yeah, the only pushback I would have on that is the rule of growth. So, like in traditional business, it's 1, 3, 5, 7, 10 years, right? That's like your business plan. You always write a business plan for 1, 3, 5, 7, 10, right? And the first year is establishment. The third year is growth. The fifth year is a move. So by your fifth year, you should be making a move. It could be lateral, but it has to be something that moves you into a new area. So you might be at the same level, but you went from, let's say, I'm working as a background actor, but now I'm actually working consistently as a core on SNL, or friends from Gotham called me to be core background. That's a lateral move, but you have technically made the move, and that's you have to make that. By your 7th year, you actually start creating movement. And movement means you're the one that is a shaker and a maker and a mover. So you're getting people into the right rooms. You may not be getting benefit from it technically, but you can go, oh, I can get you to this person, or I know this producer that would talk to you. By the 10th year, you're the person that's making things, right? So most people get stuck in the comfortableness of this is working. right? And one of the things that I was taught from my business mentors and stuff like that is if you get comfortable with what's working, you'll never grow past that. You become stagnant, not because of anything other than atrophy. You know, you're not growing these skills. You're not growing your value sets, as they would say, which is what I talk about in the book. I talk about value sets a lot, which is like malleability, movability. You know, if I ask something for somebody and I get something out of it, that's a value set. A value set isn't I wrote a book. That's not a value set.
Yeah.
It's just I have a skill. I can write.
Yeah.
Right. But a value set is how do I make things happen? How do I create movement? How do all that stuff? So that's my only pushback on that. Not necessarily on your method, but I'm just saying, like, when people become comfortable, well, this has been working.
Yeah, no, you gotta pivot, dude.
You gotta pivot. Yeah.
You have to be aware enough to know when something isn't working anymore as well.
Oh, it could be working. Perfect.
Or even when it's stagnant. If you want to continue to ascend up the ladder.
Yeah, like you want to. Yeah,
some people just are like literally legit. Okay, oh, like I'm here. I did like, and that's okay.
Like Stephen King is not going to pivot.
Yeah, exactly.
He's 70. You know what I'm saying? But he did pivot, though. He pivoted several times in his career. And
you have to.
And people were like, "No, he didn't. He's a writer." And you go, "I don't know. He produced television. He produced movies. He produced. That's a pivot. He pivoted. It was a lateral move. He was still a writer or still working on the creative end, but he moved into a new field and he started allowing his stuff to be licensed.
Yeah,
but he started in magazines.
Yeah, no, yeah. You gotta grow.
Yeah.
You know, and sometimes it's gonna make you feel a little uncomfortable, right?
And it should.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's seasons to life. And I can be comfortable with where I am now because, like, man, I did so many speaking engagements, free things. I did it for 10 years before this 10-year period. So I'm like, yo, you missed the season when I would show up for a speaking engagement and get on the airplane for $0. Like you missed my whole yes season. Now I'm in this season where things cost what they cost, right? Where, like, I'm not getting on an airplane for less than 10,000. That's just a season. And I tell people, like, I'm going to be in another season eventually. My son will be in high school and I'll still be like 49 years old. So that's
still young.
Yeah, that will likely be my season where I'm back on planes and probably saying yes to a lot of things that I would say no to now. So it's like, helping people think about things in seasons has been helpful for people I work with as well. Like, and helpful for me too.
Yeah, I'm 47. I'm in the season of please don't bother me.
Yeah. Peace. In your 40s, you want peace.
Yeah, you know, I'm relaxed. You know, like I do things. Yeah, I actually have meetings with people to see if I want to work with them.
Yeah, exactly.
Not to see if they can hire me.
40s is like,
yeah. I'm not trying to get you to buy my service. I'm trying to see if I want to give you any of it.
Right. I haven't even decided if I want to work with you.
Yeah. You know?
I don't need to get your money or whatever. I need to decide that you're not. I need to know you're not going to give me a headache.
Yeah. There was this one client that I had, and they hired me. Really nice person. Really liked talking to him, but they wanted me to write a screenplay for them. And I was like, yeah, okay. And then I worked on it and I gave it to him. And he was like, my wife loved it. She never loves any of this. This is the first draft. And I was like, yeah. And she's like, she loves it. It's perfect. I was like, great. But then their writing partner came into the picture and was like, they were like, oh, we need to do this, this, and this. And so I just said, look, I have no problem doing that, but why? Right. And they're like, oh, because it'll look cool. I go, well, I don't write cool. Because the cool factor needs to be earned and you can't just have something happen. Right. And then we got into this argument where they're like, well, I want the audience not to know if this person killed or didn't kill the person. I was like, all right, but did they? He's like, well, I don't want to say. And I was like, well, if I'm writing it, I need to know. And he's like, why? And I was like, well, because I'm writing through behavior and motivation. If a character did kill someone and they're living with that regret or whatever the case is, that's going to adjust their behavior. And they're like, yeah, but I don't want you to give away. I go, I will never say if they killed it or not, but it's still going to affect their behavior. And they're like, no, I think we should keep it a secret. And I was like, you're going to keep it a secret from me too. And they go, yeah. I go, all right, I'm done.
You're fired.
Yeah. I was like, I don't need to do this. And so the guy started getting angry anyway, and they hung up the phone. And then the guy I normally talk to and work with called me back. He goes, "Please stay on. You don't have to deal with that person. Just do what you're doing. Everything is great." And I was like, "Okay, all right."
Yep.
But I was just like, I don't need you write the thing. What do I don't need it to
Exactly.
If my name's gonna be on it, I at least want to go through it the right way, even if it's crap, you know.
Yep. I don't want to deal with a headache at this stage, man. It's so funny because for the first time ever, I created a profile on Reedsy.com. You know Reedsy?
Yeah. How's that going for you?
Yeah, I like Reedsy as an author. Sometimes I get editor. They have developmental editors and stuff on there. But I created a profile as a professional, right? And for ghostwriting services. And they have a pretty vigorous process, by the way, to like get a profile up there. I was actually surprised. Yeah, like it wasn't just set up you had to do a Zoom call and all types of stuff. So it was like legit. Yeah, I was very surprised. I'm like, what? Like they really do vet you.
Yeah.
This is not
you gotta shave your beard.
I'm just telling you, like this is. So I got my first client, right? He's like, "Hey, I want you to write my book." Seemed like a pretty legit brief, and we agreed, like, let me just write the first chapter before I get locked into your craziness, and maybe you don't like what I write.
That's a good move,
right? So wrote the first chapter. He loved it, which I knew you were gonna love it. But I noticed some things through this process because you get smart as a creative after a while. You can tell who's like gonna be a pain in the butt.
Oh yeah.
So I noticed some things through the process where I was like, yeah, this person is going to give me a headache, right? This person is not. I do not want to write this person's full book.
Yeah.
So I declined when he asked me to write the full book. I was just like,
"You're like, nope, done.
No, like
you got chapter 1. Enjoy."
I didn't say anything negative about him. I didn't make up a lie. Like I got other. I'm good.
Yeah.
And he gave me this negative review on Reedsy. Right. And I was like, well, that sucks. Because it wasn't about my writing. Your ego was just hurt because I said I declined to write your full book.
Damn.
But I'd rather have my peace. And which shows me too that I would have been stuck in like a 6-month thing with a person that would have just been giving me a headache. And I don't need your money. I don't need that.
6 months. But what about all these Amazon authors that are writing 12 books in 2 months?
They're using what? AI is writing their book. Listen.
Have you read an AI book yet, just as an experiment?
I haven't, but I heard that it's really screwing things up.
They're well, the books themselves are very like, this is what's happening. You know, like it does read like very like mechanical. It uses fairly interesting constructs and like sometimes complex sentences, which is, you know, unheard of for like AI, but it's like the other guy. It's cool, you know, like, oh, these things are happening, but nothing like there's no deeper character development. There's no deeper substance. There's no subtext. There's no, you know, like, because like if we write something and we're talking about how somebody's, you know, maybe like they're just scratching their cheek and they're like, they'll be like, oh, that's AI. I'll be like, oh, that's fluff. You want to make it concise. Just have them say the thing. And you're like, yeah, but this movement is saying more than any dialogue could say. As Marlon Brando has once been quoted saying, you know, I take pages of monologues and turn them into movement, you know, because you could say more with behavior than you can, but AI is usually as straight, like, how do I, so the books are very bland in that sense, you know, there's no, like, you can't enjoy the human element of behavior. You could only enjoy the telling of it, you know?
You know what? That's interesting because from a ghostwriter's perspective, with the client that I was just telling you about, the chapter that he sent me that he wanted me to write, he had wrote a draft using AI, and you could, as soon as you read the first sentence, it was like, and I ran it through AI. I didn't have but actually, as the ghostwriter, it did help me understand where he was trying to go with the chapter because it had a terrible draft, but it was actually more helpful than me having to sit on a 1-hour call and ask him what he wanted the first chapter to be about. Because I could understand, oh, like this is the direction you're trying to go. These are some concepts. Obviously, we can't use these concepts because AI wrote them, but I can turn them into a human concept. So it actually, I was surprised. I was like, oh, like this is super helpful that I kind of know the points you want to make, and you have a terrible first draft, but it's way easier than you telling me on a Zoom call. Yeah.
I'm a fan of outlining. So like if somebody's like, I want you to write my book, I go, let's figure out the outline first before I write anything, because I don't like rewriting chapters to rewrite, like to figure out the narrative. I like
Yeah.
rewriting it to work on pace, for line editing, for, adding stuff, taking stuff away. But I don't like writing it and then having to reread 3,000 words per chapter or
I hate
whatever
that.
it is,
Oh,
just to
Jesus.
be like, is this
The
making
reread.
sense?
Yeah. The reread is the worst.
Yeah. So when I work with clients, I go, let's really work on the outline. Not that it has to be robotic in the sense of like I write broad general outlines, but it's like I just want to kind of know what the movement of behavior is and stuff like that, and like we can see the arcs in three sentences instead of 600 600,000 words or whatever. Obviously it's hyperbole.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do not write a 600,000 word book.
That'd be crazy. That would be a really good book.
You ever look up like how many words like epic fantasy authors have done in their lifetime for a saga? It's like 4 or 5 million words.
Oh yeah, those are long.
I love them, but
yeah.
Well, my fantasy book's 230, which is
See,
but it's epic fantasy though.
Yeah, I know. I like shout out to everybody that can write that many words. That ain't me. That ain't me. Like
this is boom. But what's interesting is the readers I have that work on it, like my beta readers or my alpha readers. Yeah. What's funny is when I first started working with them, they would look like I had a prologue that was 8,000 words, right? Because it's basically a short story. And they saw that and they're like, is this like, I thought a prologue was supposed to be like a page or something. And they're like, this is pretty long. And I was like, well, just read it. And they finished. And every single reader that I have was like, I wish it kept going.
Oh, see, yeah, that's good. That's good writing. You got to be a good writer to write that many words and keep people interested.
But they all read it in one sitting too.
Yeah, that's great.
8,000.
That's great.
That's a big prologue, right? But they were just like, I couldn't stop. And I write what's known as logical narrative movement, which is a very specific technique that not a lot of authors use. More famous, successful authors that write like creative long form use it. You can find it, but it isn't a common style of writing. But I learned that from writing screenplays, because everything needs to be earned and everything needs to be moving the narrative forward. So if every sentence is doing something, whether it's plot, character, or world building. But also what you do is logical narrative movement by definition is if I write a sentence, there's elements in that sentence. So it might be a name, it might be a location, it might be whatever, the immersion element, it's cold. Logical narrative movement dictates that the next sentence must qualify, expand, or explore one of the elements that were just brought up. Right? And if you know what you're doing, if you learn the logic of storytelling, you realize what element is most important. But most people will be like, they entered the city of blue, right? And then they're like, I'm going to give a history of blue. And then that's not technically the logical narrative movement, because we don't need to know about blue. We'll learn about blue as because we're going to see people there. We're going to see what is the layout of the city? What is how are they dressed? What's the culture? When you walk into a shop, are they like, Hera Humna, and they're like, oh, Hera Humna, that must be the welcome, So, but some people they'll mention something. Even they'll be like Dr. Sheena Howard, and then there's like a professor, and she's gotten her doctorate in it, and like none of that's important yet.
Right.
So but if you stick to logical narrative movement, it becomes a fast read, which has nothing to do with pace. Pace is the speed at which information is presented to the reader, right? That's for the audiences.
Yeah.
But a fast read or a slow read is about the condensedness or brain to understanding. So like basically jargon creates slow pace, right? Because it's dense, right? But slow pace can still be a fast read if the jargon makes logical sense. So if I don't have to think, I can read through that without having to figure out what it is. So that's some people think slow pace means like, what is going on? Like, I don't know.
Right.
But it's just information. It's deep information. That's all. We're going to sit in this moment. We're going to get a little bit more immersive.
Right. Got to think deeply. You're right.
Yeah.
The pace.
Slow it down, So, but But anyway, little
yeah.
little craft side.
I love that. No, I love that. I'm gonna look up logical narrative movement for sure.
Logical narrative movement. Yep, yep, yep. I talk about it in the. I'm working on an outlining book right now for people because I do the 27 plot point outline, which is just basically a very in-depth version of like how to write a narrative. And I talk about logical narrative movement there. But I'm also writing a how to write book, like how to create stronger prose and different styles of prose, and like there's like have you ever heard of well, you know how like this third person limited and third person like stuff like that. So there are different styles of third person, which is like revolving third person. I don't know, or roaming third person. Have you ever heard of that? Like where that does. So I usually write in that style.
Okay.
So, but what's the rule that people say? You don't change POVs within a chapter. Right? Never do that. Never do that. Right. But that's obviously a misnomer.
Yeah, exactly.
You got to do it correctly. You got to use transitions. You got to
take people out of the story. That's basically what the fear is if you switch point of view.
Yeah.
But
if you move the camera right in the shot, you can move into. You just can't be like in the same passage. And be like, Thomas sat across from Dr. Howard. Dr. Howard thought to herself as Thomas was contemplating the look she made on her face. Like, you can't do that in a pro. Like one passage can't be like that's head hopping. Yeah. But it's I always do you know who Joe Abercrombie is? He's well known for doing that. Like he'll write a fight scene where like somebody will shoot an arrow. So the POV starts on the person aiming, shooting the arrow, and then like the shot follows the arrow into the battle, and it hits a soldier next to one of their companions, and the companion looks down, and now we're in the POV of the companion fighting through. So like he does a lot of that too. So I really like cinematic sort of movement to narrative because I come from screenwriting.
Yeah, you come from screenplay, so.
Yeah. So that's sort of my style. A little bit more.
Yeah. No, I like how our history informs how we write. It's like my creative writing really started more so as a comic book writer.
Oh, that's where I started.
Yeah, and so for me, even when I write novels, this is my brain just trained to have cliffhangers.
Yeah.
Because when you write comic books, you got to have a cliffhanger to get them to go to the second issue of it, right? They got to see what happens next. So when I write novels, it's cliffhangers every chapter.
Yeah.
Right? Because I'm just trained that way, which publishers seem to like. Actually, they like the cliffhanger thing.
You gotta have a cliffhanger. And by the way, for anyone listening, a cliffhanger doesn't always have to be a dun dun dun. A cliffhanger just leaves you with a question. Like what? What did I just learn? Do you write when you're writing long form narrative, creative long form narrative? Do you write it in the idea of panels still? Because it took me a while to get out of panel writing when I was switching over. For anyone who's listening, comics they call them panels on the page. And there's like sometimes 4 or 5, sometimes 8 panels on a page. But like, because
when you write comics, you have to visualize also what it's going to look like on the page. It's not just about writing the text. Like I don't think so. When I write novels, I can really switch that part of my brain off in terms of thinking about it in panels. But the kind of the structure and the techniques I learned from writing comics do transfer over to at least the other creative writing stuff. But I also write a lot of narrative nonfiction too. So I do a lot of business self-help books and
the memoirs, right?
Yeah, not really memoirs, really more so narrative nonfiction. So like the self-help tradition, like because it's an easy formula to write a self-help book. We're gonna start with a thesis. We're gonna share a story that makes a lesson. We're gonna say, oh, there's other credible research and celebrities that said this, that back up my creative new theory that I'm talking about. I just called a different name from what someone else did, and then we're gonna end it with the thesis, right? So I like narrative. I know I'm explaining it in a boring way, but it's actually very fun for me to write.
No, that was exciting.
Yeah.
No.
Memoir is different, and I'm not really. I probably would have a hard time writing someone else's memoir.
For sure, because you're not in their head, and
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. The
yeah.
self helps. Yeah, I was talking to someone the other day, and they're like, "You do 3,000 words in a day?" I was like, "It's nonfiction."
It's very easy. I mean, and I
Yeah,
don't want to diminish, like, writing is
right.
challenging, but
Well,
like,
no, I disagree. Writing is easy. Being a
yeah,
writer is hard because
yeah,
anyone could write Chris met
that's
Sarah,
true. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but like, why did they meet? How did they
Right, right.
meet?
Making it good.
Yeah, asking the
Um,
questions. That's the hard part. That's what makes you a writer. Is like
yeah.
even when you're doing nonfiction,
Hmm.
you're like, how do I start this?
It has to be
That's
compelling.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's the writer part.
yeah,
Putting
yeah.
the words down.
And narrative nonfiction I also like too, because the way that you tell that story that needs to be in each chapter has to be a different story that helps make the point. The way that you tell that story is where you really can get creative and hook the
Yeah.
reader and get them emotionally invested. And yeah, I really enjoy writing those types of books for clients. And interestingly enough, it's easier for me to ghostwrite someone else's narrative nonfiction book than mine. Like I've never written one for myself. I'm writing one now, and I'm having such a hard time. And I'm like, why can I do this so easy for other people? But when it comes to writing mine, it's really tough. I don't. It's weird to me.
Why don't you approach it like you're two different people? Ask yourself the
Really?
questions you do for a client.
That's good.
You
Do a
know,
Zoom interview with myself and transcribe it, and be yeah, that's
you
good.
know what I'm saying, and you could
I could
just
do
be
that.
like, how would I approach this? How would I, if I was approaching me as a client, what would I ask myself? And
Hmm.
sort of change up the structure, and maybe that's where the disconnect is because your process has changed when it's yourself.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
what if it's the process you use for someone else? Maybe you can pull it out of you,
that's
and
true.
you know, like the self-help books that I wrote, they're just my speaking. Like when I
Yeah, I
use,
like that.
yeah. So it's just that, but I expand on it.
Yeah,
I can go a little deeper because I'm not restricted to an hour or 2 hours.
right. I love
So yeah, it just gets it out. But I also there's a lot of humor in my books.
yeah.
So when you're reading it, it's almost poking fun of itself, and it's
Yeah, I like that.
you know,
Yeah, I like that. I like that. Um, I know the last time we spoke, I definitely want to update your listeners. The last time we spoke, I didn't have an agent, and we were like talking a little bit about that because I was like on my
you're like, I need an
finding
agent.
an agent journey for like a decade. Like
Yeah, and you got one.
I got one. I finally got an agent, which has been very helpful.
Mm-hmm.
It really was worth the wait. Um, and it just having another team member
Oh yeah, yeah.
is really, really helpful to know that I don't have to do the next 10 years, the same way the same way I did the previous 10 years of doing everything myself
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
is it is much better.
What would you say is one misconception that you carried into getting an agent that you realize is not what you thought it would be having an agent?
I probably can't answer that question yet because I still feel like I'm new to having an agent. So I just got my agent in basically January, the beginning of this year,
Okay.
and she's pitching some stuff for me. Um, she definitely has helped me advance my career though in terms of I haven't done very much industry stuff until this year in terms of like going to writing conferences, going to the
Yeah.
APA that kind of stuff, and just having her there to say, "Hey, go to the conference and talk to this person." Like there's this thing, those little things that you wouldn't necessarily know for sure that this experienced person can tell you has been incredibly helpful. Now, of course, you have your friends and writing community that help you with
Yeah.
those as well. But having that extra person that's a little more steeped in the industry probably would be something that I didn't realize would be as important. And it has really, really helped.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, that's something, right?
Gives
Like,
me more confidence too, because I was in a call with this super, super huge publisher I think last month. And to be able to be like, yeah, I'll have my agent send the stuff.
yeah,
When you're dealing at the level that I'm talking to with this publisher, definitely takes a weight off of your shoulder to know
yeah.
that you don't have to carry your own self past the finish line. And like it
Mm-hmm.
does take some, I don't want to say worry, but it is a weight lifted off.
Well, it also has a status to it. Like when I
It
was in the
does.
music industry, I was trying to explain to people, like my band members, like the difference between having representation and not having representation. So I called up a record label as myself. I changed my name though, but I was like, hey, I'm from a band and I was wondering if maybe we could blah, blah, blah. And they're like, yeah, send it to this address. And it was like, just a general address, whatever. And then I called up like maybe an hour later and I was like, yeah, I'm from Leibowitz and Leibowitz and I'm calling on behalf of my clients. Blah, blah, blah. And they gave me a different address and told me to give it to a very specific A&R person.
No, that's real. No, I think that people miss, like, that is having representation matters.
Yeah,
it does matter. And I'll be the first to say you can get very far without an agent. Like, don't let that stop your writing journey, period. Because I've done more than some people with agents, like just phenomenal stuff. But it does open up a different lane.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And sometimes you don't know what you're missing when you've been doing it yourself for a long time.
Yeah. And it gets tiring too, especially.
It gets tiring. I'm so glad I don't have to pitch the proposals anymore and write the proposals anymore and figure out who to send it to. Like, that stuff, it saves me so much time.
Yeah.
Where I could focus more on the writing this summer. This summer I wrote like 3 books.
3 books.
Yeah. The beginnings of like 2 books. Because now all I have to do is like just write a couple sample chapters and send it to the agent. Right, Grace? It's just easier. Like, just get the agent a couple sample chapters, tell her why you want to write it, and then it's her job to create the proposal and do all the things.
You tell her it's a 400,000 word book?
What'd you say?
Yeah, go, right. It's 400,000 word book.
I've never.
Just to be fair for anyone listening, what the doctor is talking about is in self-help, you don't actually have to write a full book. You can write a few sample chapters and basically an outline and a treatment, and they pitch that, and then you get paid in thirds to basically start the book, and then there's a word count, but when it comes to long form narrative, creative long form, you can't do it that way, unless of course you have a name like Stephen King or R.R. Martin could be like, I want to write a book about this. And they go, oh, that sounds good. We'll sign you because you have the proven. But anyway, we're getting close to the end and I have to ask a last question. But since you are a returning guest, you've already answered the question that I ask everybody. So I'm going to ask you a different question.
Oh.
Because that's what we have to do. All right. Let's see. Let's go back. Let's go back in time. What was the most challenging aspect of transitioning from an aspiring writer to a published author? And how did you overcome any obstacles or setbacks along the way?
Well, I would say trying to get my first book, just a publisher to publish my first book. And sometimes if you believe in your thing, you just got to keep pitching it. Mm-hmm. Because for my first book, which was a really successful book, the first few publishers told me like no, and they gave me reasons and things that I should change. Mm-hmm. And I was like, no, like this iteration is the way that the book is supposed to be. And I don't know if this is going to be right for everyone, but I didn't change anything. I just kept pitching it.
You're like, I wrote it on the Boondocks, okay?
Yeah, and if I had have changed it, then I don't get to become the first Black woman to win an Eisner Award at San Diego Comic-Con, right?
With the book you didn't change.
Exactly. So sometimes when you got that feeling like, no, I believe in this iteration of it. And it's a balance because sometimes you do have to listen to people in the industry if you right. So it's a balance, but like, yeah, that would be something that would be probably something that was a little bit challenging. Just believing in yourself to know that they're wrong this time and I'm right this time, and I'm going to stick with this iteration of what I believe in.
And it led to your success.
Yeah.
Just to backtrack, you're a Black woman? I thought you were Irish. I'll be honest with you.
I mean, listen, I could be part Irish.
All right, Dr. Sheena Howard, how do people find you?
At Dr. Sheena Howard everywhere, y'all. Find me. I'm most active on Instagram and Threads. Those are my 2 platforms right now. YouTube is a little hit or miss, but yeah.
All right, excellent. And for anyone who's just listening to the audio, that's SHEENA EENA for Sheena.
Yes.
Thank you so much for coming on for a second time and give me some of your
Yeah.
time and maybe some chitting and chatting over here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, to everyone out there, I'm Thomas J. Bellezza, and as always, keep developing the right mindset. I'll see you next time. Bye.